So our first question, I need a volunteer to read it, please. Okay, don't all jump up at once.
I'll, I'll read it. I'll read it.
Thank you.
Text features. Text features announce that this section will focus on two overarching concepts: childhoods and radicalism. How fitting that contributors return to childhood as a site of exploration to trace the roots of their radicalism. How do you describe your radicalism? What are the histories attached to it? What routes do you uncover? Well,
Thank
just
you.
because I read the question doesn't mean I have to be the first one to answer it.
Okay, no pressure, no pressure. Thanks for reading the question, Michelle.
You know how the professor goes in deep.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. She had me questioning, am I radical? No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I know for me, some of it, comes out of my experience of having three brothers and being the only girl of four siblings. Um, so just kind of seeing the different stereotypes or expectations that were put on us um, from our parents based on our gender just always felt off to me. Um, so I think that by the time I started hearing the language of feminism, it resonated with me. But what I'm also thinking about in one of these essays, I think it's Yamada's piece that talks about being the invisible Asian. And when she was having that experience with her students and faculty and administrators where she was teaching, and they were so shocked at her standing up for herself because Asians shouldn't be doing that. And somebody said to her, "Oh, you've been influenced by those feminists," and that kind of stuck with me because that's kind of young woman that my feelings were a product of being influenced by somebody. Oh, I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable. So, that my feelings were the product of being influenced by somebody and not a product of my own experience and reaction to my own experiences. It's a very dismissive kind of way. Um, so yeah, so some of my childhood experience is that just the sexism in my family.
Mhm. Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else?
I can go.
Thanks, Leonie.
um, my how I would describe my radicalism, it doesn't come from, yeah, I guess the easiest thing that I could say to describe my radicalism is that it's it's centered in decolonizing the way that I think and in decolonizing the systems that I'm a part of. And so it, to kind of bottom line it, it's about not prioritizing the experiences um, of dominant culture, like questioning pretty much everything about it. That's where my radicalism sits right now. And the histories attached to it is not accepting and being not accepting the erasure, even though there's been so much effort to erase almost everything about the history as a person comes from enslaved people and from the Caribbean, so much erasure around any connection to Africa as a continent, as a person of African descent. That I'm not taking that just lying down. Like I am keenly interested in the roots of where I come from, and don't accept as just my whole story, the roots that are known to me that come through enslavement and colonialism. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well, that's pretty powerful. Okay, thank you. Okay, Kim, you're on the spot.
um, it's funny. I think I grew up in a house where my mother was extremely radical when it came to racism. But when it came to sexism, she 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 showed us how a woman's power. She was a very powerful woman, but she still, when it came to other women, she would still try to hold on to certain roles and wanted other women to be in that women's space. But she never herself was not in that space. So I always found that to be interesting that, she would say to us, okay, I want the girls to do this and that and the other thing. But she was out all day kicking doors open. And so it was just like I could see how the concepts were new and forming in her brain and in her mind, and they didn't reconcile in her home. They did not. But the wonderful thing is that they gave me this she gave me this image of somebody who didn't have to fit in a role. Even though she told me to be in the role, she wasn't in the role, and neither am I. So because her example was stronger than her words. So I really appreciate that. But her example in terms of fighting oppression and racism, I have that today, and I get that from her. So I don't cower when it comes time to look at situations that are not equitable. So I'm real grateful, and I just have to look at, I grew up in the 1960s. That was the moment where power was shifting and we were coming into our own. So I like the idea of the question going back to childhood, because I'm wondering if, people from who are in their 30s and in their 20s would have a whole different perspective, that this would just be second nature, as opposed to it being so new when I was a child, especially a young child. And then there are women today who want to go backwards. So what you gonna do? I mean, not a lot of them, hopefully, but then there are women who feel like the man is the king of the house, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But that was not my mother, and that was not my example.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
I think all you ladies kind of touched on some very important aspects of, this term we want to embrace as radicalism. The gaze of others and how it informs what we think about what we do and where we sit, in our lives, in our communities. Uh, the uh, the knowledge available, you know, or the rewriting of information, and then you find a bit, you know, a spark, a light here somewhere, and you become curious and you follow that to more knowledge, and then it exposes uh, information about histories that you never known, you know, and that improves your self-image and then even your understanding of other peoples around the world of color. And and then Kim, you're talking about, you know, the example in your home of, you know, that duality that's inherent in women everywhere, how you have to, you know, that survival instinct, you know, that looks like radicalism, but isn't it just being that ritual of a woman, right? Because we have to make it for ourselves and for our children, for the people we care about. We make those ways. And it may not look like the traditional role of a woman, but you do it anyway. But then you're still constrained by, you know, the social mores or the cultural, you know, boundaries that, okay, you know, I did these things because I need to survive and help my children survive, but I don't want to be termed as other than a female, you know, the acceptable, you know, role within my home. And I saw that conflict with my mother also growing up. She had to do a lot of things that were considered, I guess you could be considered manly, but it was about survival, right? But she, because she was so ingrained in the church, because that's how she was raised from, you know, being from the South, you know, Southern Baptist, that she knew, and the knowledge that she wanted to have and then gained opened her eyes so that she couldn't accept the lies and the restrictions that were placed on her because she was a female. So she wanted to branch out and raise her hands above, reach above her head to the clouds, right? To be more than what they wanted her to be, right? She wanted to be, oh, a woman can't be in the pool, but oh, yes, I can. So I guess that was her radicalism. And I watched that, you know, I watched the duality, the conflicts in her, and how, you know, it took a toll on her emotionally because she wanted, you know, the male companionship. But if a man only wants you to be underneath them, how can you truly be free, right? So it was her desire to be free and be who she was, and all the many facets and, you know, the things she loved, and be accepted, but still not be under a man's foot. You know, that's the contradiction, right? We need them. We need somebody to love us as we are. And how do we be that, you know, or strive for that without being put in a box, you know, having someone else's gaze be the rule for how you're going to develop your own personally.
Right.
So I don't know if that's radical or just, you know, for me, it's more than that. It's survival. You know, you're trying to survive as a soul inside a body that could look any kind of way. And you have all these restrictions placed on you. You may not have the truth, may not have access to the truth of who you are, where you come from. So you're just trying to survive, you know, and understand how to matriculate in a society that wants to keep you under their feet. So, okay, I probably talked too much, but let's go
No, it's fine.
That's great, Georgette.
And I just want to say thank you, Chiquita. I guess you're out there watching us. Leonie is sending us your
on.
messages.
Okay,
So um,
cool.
thank you for that. Georgette, yeah, it sounds to me like, your mother was very radical, and um, it was also making me think about, I did watch the 2 hour Girl Trek video today that Nicole shared with us of their conversation with Angela Davis and Nikki Giovanni. And when they got down toward the end, toward the Q&A, um, one of the Girl Trek founders asked the question of something like to the effect of, well, how do you feel about this title, feminism? Because, I would never call myself a feminism. I don't understand how Black woman could be a feminism, that whole thing. And, so Angela Davis had a great answer for her, but I'll leave Angela for you to go hear Angela's response. But what I want to say in response to your mother, Georgette, is my attitude about the word feminism, and I've probably said this to you guys before, is you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it jujubes. If you have a desire to be free, if you have a desire to develop your own capacities to your highest ability, somebody's going to have a problem with that. And then jujubes is going to be the ugly word. You can call it diaper wakaku. If you have a desire to be free, then diaper wakaku is going to be a bad word. I don't think it matters. I think it's the behavior that those who seek to oppress us are reacting to. And so they use our language, they use the words in order to help scare us and diminish us and beat us back into submission. So call it what you want. Womanism is a great word. There are a lot of words, but the point is, are you getting in the way of my freedom or not?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Let's start a movement. Jujubes.
If that makes you happy.
Her point well expressed. Definitely. Okay. So if no one has anything else to add, we can move on to question number 2.